Have you guys used SolidWorks before? You're familiar with like the basic, sketches and features and stuff?
Yes.
Sweet.
Yeah, just the basics.
Yeah, so just like any other SolidWorks thing, when we're working with weldments, we're going to be starting off with a sketch. But first and foremost, you want to go up. Do you see where all like your tools are, like analysis, MDB, simulation, all this stuff? If you right click on that and go to tabs, you want to add the weldments tab. That's going to be one of the key things to do. That way you have access to the weldments features. Next up is on the top left corner, we have sketch and a little arrow underneath it. And we're going to want to do a 3D sketch because the bicycle kind of exists as a 3D frame. So once we are in 3D sketch mode, we have our origin right here and we could start. The first thing that I'm going to start with, and I'm not really going off of the dimensions of any specific bicycle. I'm just including the basic components, and the idea of the exercise is to kind of show off the weldment features of SolidWorks. So they might be the worst dimension bicycle ever from like a geometry perspective, but I'm not going to pretend to be a bicycle geometry expert. We're not really designing a bike, we're more learning the SolidWorks features. The first thing I'm going to do is leave myself with some reference geometry. But while I do this, you can see how I'm on the XY plane. If I hit tab, I switch to the YZ plane. If I hit tab again, I switch to the ZX plane. And those are the 3 planes that we're going to be working on. I'm thinking that we're going to put the head tube on the XY plane. So I'm going to drop down just a couple lines just to make my life easier. I don't know why that glitched out. Weird. This is to give myself something to measure some angles against. Now we're going to go with an actual line. So what we're going to be doing is when we're drawing lines in the 3D sketch mode, I'll do a very quick example. If I were just to draw a line, I would be able to go into the weldments features once my zoom window's in the way. Once I exit my sketch, which save it, and I can click structural member. And then on any line that I draw, I can put a tube on and it will generate a weldment. There's a whole bunch of other stuff we could do, but that's the gist of what we're getting to, is these lines are going to compose where the tubes of our bike frame is going to be. Does anyone have any questions on that so far?
No, I'm good.
Sweet. Back to the sketch. So I don't really want my head to be like that. So now what I want to do is I want to define the angle of my head tube. 42 is insane. We're just going to say 5 degrees. So you could use the smart dimension tool and then click on the line, which is going to make up our head tube, onto this construction line to set the angle. And next up, I want to set the length of this head tube. Maybe 8 inches. So that's now 8 inches long. So the dimensions are kind of wonky. Alrighty. Next up is going to be the top tube. We want the top tube to be on the same plane. And notice I'm not putting it on the very end because the center of the tube is around the line. So if I were to do the center, it would kind of sit on top of the head tube halfway. Whereas if I put it inwards, it's not. Just like that. Get it started, and we will give this one a length of 4 feet. That looks a little, that's fine. Yeah, big bike. Okay, and then you could say, depending on how much we carry, about 2 inches. 2 inches. Okay. Next up, I want to make sure that we know that we're all perpendicular, and this is all pretty much just regular sketching stuff. 95 degrees, and that makes sense because it's sitting parallel to our x-axis, and our head tube is off by 5 degrees, so you expect to see 95 degrees there. So now we can put on our, whatever you call this one. I'm going to bring it down. And then you'll see why, but I'm going to connect these two with a construction line right now. So we want our seat post tube to go up on top. We're just going to start with a construction line. And now we could define these angles and lengths of our bike. So we can make this length to be 35 inches. This is kind of what I was doing before my example one, so we'll stick to it. Again, not really based on any bike. And then we want to set these angles up correctly. Yep, that is what it is there. We should be good. We'll set this. Why is it doing that? Yeah, we know it's going to redefine it. All right, we'll leave it there. Okay, next up is we want to put a place for our bottom bracket to exist on our bike. So whenever we draw a line, it composes the center of the tube. So right here, as we can see, we're not on the plane. So we could hit tab, and it's going to put us on the plane that we want to be, which is perpendicular to everything we've drawn so far, because the bottom bracket tube is perpendicular to the rest of the frame. So we'll draw that there. We're going to say that we want it to be line. Mess that one up. And this length also a little bit arbitrary because we could change it later. Just to make it really long for now, just so it works nicely with everything else. And I want this to be one line. It just makes the weldments work happier. So that's 5 inches. We'll make this 10. Alrighty, that's looking pretty good. Now, next up is going to be setting up our back of the bike. Now, this part kind of makes a triangle, opens up. Is everyone following along okay, by the way?
Yeah, you're doing great.
All right, everyone kind of able to get their 3D sketch set up, looking somewhat like a bicycle so far. Man, it looks messy in there. Alrighty. So continuing along, we want to go back to using these center lines just for construction. And we're going to continue on our XY plane. Come on, there we go. And again, these dimensions are arbitrary. It's more about the process. We could call this one 25 inches. Now it looks ridiculous. 30 inches. Alrighty. And now what we could do is either you could input the angle directly, or you would know how far apart these back pieces are. And that's the assumption I'm working with. So what I'm going to say is that using a construction line, maybe to make space for all the bike stuff that goes in there. Again, we're going to use tab to change planes. For all the bike stuff in there, maybe it is a total of 6 inches apart. So I'll make this one 3 inches. Like that. And then using those two lines, we could connect it with an actual line out to there. And to speed things up, I could use mirror entities. I'm going to select this line to mirror. Actually, not yet. What I'm going to do now is go from that same point down there, way back up to where our seat post top is. And now I'm going to mirror entities. So I could go mirror entities, the line I just drew, plus the other line, mirror about. And now I want to mirror about one of the planes. So I'm going to go up here where it says part 5 to open up the tree. And I want to be mirroring about, man, it's so small, really. What plane are you? The front plane. So we're going to mirror about the front plane. And there we go. We have overdefined our model. That's fine. Not going to worry about that. Find out what's angry and fix it. Continuing on with our sketch, we have massively overdefined something. Let's figure out what it is that's breaking everything, and we can get rid of it. This thing got really angry. That's fine. Something's overdefined up here. Well, mirroring just broke everything. So we're just going to draw those by hand. Doesn't really take that long. So I'll get in the way. And I don't get why I didn't want a mirror, but that's SolidWorks for you. Sometimes it just gets unhappy. So we're going to go back to what we were doing and just drop this line 3 inches, exactly the same. I think mirroring literally probably takes longer in this scenario, but just wanted to show that was possible. But there we go. Boom, boom, and boom, boom. It's in the chat. That's weird. Yeah, there you go. Right, magic of CAD. Sometimes you'll get an error, sometimes you won't. But there we go. Now we are only missing one part, which is going to be our seat post tube following that construction line. Oh, probably on the wrong plane. Naturally. There we go. Yep. Following the construction line. Set the angle between 0. So lazy. And that was kind of a hokey way to do it, but whatever. And then we could finally set this length. We're going to make ours 42 inches, 40 inches. All right, now we are ready to do the weldments, and this is the exciting part. And this is where the rubber hits the road, and we actually kind of make our bike frame work. So I'm going to exit the sketch by hitting the blue window in the upper hand corner. We have a good, nice working 3D sketch of our bike frame. We should have our weldments tab right here. And now if you don't have it, what you could do is you could right click on all of these buttons, go to tabs and select weldments. And that's how we're going to get access to our weldments features. Alrighty. Once we're there, we could go to structural member. And here's where, we can maybe test some different tubing sizes with this model, do some stress analysis and figure out what the correct one is. But for the purpose of this demo, we're just going to wing it. We're going to say that our top tube has 3-inch over outer diameter. So where I'm finding these options is under selections, standard, ANSI. And then I'm going to aluminum round tubing. And that's where I can click on size, and I could choose all these different sizes. So I'm going to go 3-inch outer diameter, whatever wall, and then I'm going to select my top tube and hit check. Not top tube, or whatever this one is. What's the technical bike term for that?
It would be a head tube.
Head tube. There we go. Head tube. I put my head tube on, and we have a head tube. So now I'm going to go back to structural member, and we want to do our bottom bracket. Same thing, whatever gets held in there. And we'll select that. And next up, the tubes that comprise our top tube, our seat post tube, and the one on the bottom there, we'll make that out of 2-inch tubing, just to kind of show how we could do tubing intersects. So same thing, 1/8 inch wall thickness, and I'll select there and there. Actually, hold up, cancel that. I'm going to select my seat post tube first because I don't want it to get cut open by all the other tubes. So there we go. And now I'm going to do these 2 tubes. So I'm going to go structural member, top tube, bottom tube. Please. Let me select it. Okay. My SolidWorks is extra angry today and letting me do one at a time. That's 100% fine. It's all going to work the same. And we'll do that again there. And now before it gets too messy, what I want you guys to see is that if I were to take a section of this, on the inside, these tubes are just clipping through each other right now, which is not really what we want to be seeing when we go to manufacture this, because obviously that's not how a bike works. So what we have to fix this is this button up here called trim/extend. So I could trim tubes. So obviously we don't want to trim our head tube because there's components, there's bearings that have to go in there. We want to trim this top tube. So I'm going to select bodies to be trimmed as the top tube. and trimming boundary right there and right there. And what we'll see, so we look down it now, that tube has been trimmed to perfectly cope onto our other tubes. Great spot to drop a weld and do it. So if I go back into that section view like it was before, we could see that things are working the way that we'd want them to work in real life now. So I'm going to go ahead and unsection view and trim up my other tubes. So trim/extend. We want to trim this guy. We want to trim it on there. We want to trim it on there and on there because I think it has a little bit of intersection. Trim it all up. Perfect. We have one more to go. Trim/extend. Trim that one. We want to trim it to here. And now, when we do that section view again, we should see that all of our tubes are now connecting in a logical way where they're not clipping into each other. And this is something that could feasibly be assembled with a good enough jig. Alrighty. Get out of the section view. And we only have 4 more tubes to go. How's everyone doing? Following along okay so far?
Perfect 100.
Awesome. Glad to hear it. Alrighty. So I'm going to go back to structural members. And those guys will probably be even smaller. So we'll give them a 1.5 eighth inch thick. Boom. Boom. This is going to be a little bit crazy. Boom. Boom. Now here's where we want to be careful with our end conditions. So down here is where we could see corner treatments. And there's a bunch of different options. We could have that miter corner. What that looks like is the 2 pipes get cut like that. But if I go on here and edit the feature, we could actually apply different kinds of end treatments. So if I do that one, what we'll see is that tube will fit on top. And because SolidWorks is cranky, it did the other one the other way. But obviously, you could go back and tune that up. And the last end condition was, there's a whole bunch. Do these ones. And this is choosing pretty much the level of trim you have. So if you're accounting for radiuses in your members. And the last one is same thing, but flipped the other way. What we're going to go with, I think, is best is the 45 degree, or not 45 degree, the kind of cutout corners. It matches the tubes up the nicest. And then on a real bike, you'd actually have something down here, which would be modeled. But now look at this craziness going on up here. We're going to need to do some trimming. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go trim/extend. Bodies to be trimmed. Trim that guy. Trim that guy. We're going to trim it against there. And there. Check. Okay. Ooh, that didn't turn out how I wanted it. We're going to delete that and try it again. I'm going to do some trim/extend. Try them one at a time. There we go. It doesn't look right, but you'll see how it is right in like 1 second. So if I go to my round tubing and I open it up on the tree, we can now see it got broken up into different parts. And right here is trim/extend 5. I could right click on it and I could hit delete/keep body, delete bodies, check, boom, gone. And we could see it has been removed from the inside. So now we're going to do another trim/extend, trim it up, there. Complete the task, and we're going to go down. We're going to find this guy, wherever he is. And we're going to go delete/keep body, delete the body. That's looking pretty good. It's all matched up now. And the final step is to do the same thing for the bottom, although that does look kind of cool. Trim/extend, select it, trim it, go for it. that time SolidWorks did exactly what we wanted it to do. Select it, trim it, go for it, boom. And that is a bicycle frame in CAD in time. Not too bad time. Let's see.